Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today we're going to talk about math and numbers relating to Marvel Future Fight and some other Netmarble games. And now, before we continue, I know what you're thinking. Cynicalex doing math? I had some help, so I want to shout out right at the beginning of the video, Dogsnot, for helping me out with what was probably rudimentary math for him, but was puzzling me. So thank you very much, sir, for your kind assistance. Now, let's get down to it. What am I talking about? The Q1 and Q2 earnings results for Netmarble. Now, these are made public, so I didn't have to go do anything weird or illegal to obtain these. And, for those of you that don't know, Q1 or Q1 or 1Q refers to the first 3 months of the year, January, February, March of 2020. And then Q2 refers to the next 3 months, April, May, and June. So this actually gives us a really nice snapshot of what really happened for Marvel Future Fight in those 6 months. And especially going back and looking at those updates, you start to get an idea of, did we actually feel, did our feeling of the update and our reaction to the updates, did those actually translate into more earnings or less earnings, more revenue, less revenue, or did it have no impact whatsoever? Because, months will go by and people will say, or people will have a general sentiment like, man, these updates have been really bad lately, or they'll say these updates have been really good lately, but then sometimes it just doesn't pan out, right? And maybe the company's making more money anyway, so it doesn't even matter what we think, right? And ultimately, although we like to think, and I like to think that we have more influence in the game and the devs listen to us, and they do listen to us sometimes, ultimately, this is what talks the most, right? These are private businesses. They're trying to make money. They're trying to make as much money as possible to satisfy their shareholders and whatever. So, they keep their jobs or they get promotions and they make more money personally by making the company more money as a whole. So money talks at the end of the day. So that's maybe not the best reference there, but anyways, I won't go any further with that one. So let's go ahead and investigate briefly. Okay, I'm not going to dive too deeply into these numbers here because, again, I'm not a wizard. I am merely an apprentice mage. And of course, I had, help from Gandalf himself. So we're going to be looking primarily at overseas revenue share and then game portfolio divisions. Okay, and this is where we're going to talk about another big game for Netmarble, which was Seven Deadly Sins Grand Cross. And I know some of you guys who watch me also watch me play that game. I play it on Twitch a lot. Awesome game. And holy crap, if you want a sort of Cole's Notes, Spark Notes spoiler, that game has made a disgusting amount of money for Netmarble in a very short amount of time. But there's some really good news. There's some very, very good news for Marvel Future Fight. So let's take a look at what happened in Q1, in the first 3 months of the year. So basically, the way that they divide revenue, they divide it into 2 categories, Korea and overseas. So it can be a little bit tough, but basically Korea is literally every other country besides Korea. So that includes North America, that includes Europe, that includes Japan, that includes others, which I assume would be Africa, Latin America, etc., Australia. Yeah, so the division is pretty wide. However, Europe and North America make up almost half of the total revenue. You can see they're 10% and 33%. And I mentioned Europe and North America because that is probably a good indication of about half of the people watching. I know there are a lot of people watching from other areas of the world, and I'm not singling these areas out in terms of my viewership and their revenue, but I'm just trying to point to a correlation in regards to Marvel Future Fight specifically, not in regards to any of the other games. Anywho, so this is how it's split up, and this is how it breaks down. And essentially, they made about, you can see here based on the numbers, and you can calculate based on the overseas revenue, 377, so almost 380 billion won. So when you translate that into US dollars, because it's just easier to understand, they made just under $320 million overseas revenue. So that is actually 317 million US, and whatever that is in Canadian, whatever. So 317 million US in Q1 for all of their overseas, for all their games overseas. So then we combine that with this information down here in the game portfolio. So this is where they divide how much money they're making across their games. So they take their revenue breakdown, and they don't break down their revenue by region, by title, which would be super helpful and would take a lot of the guessing out of it. But this is where we usually point to Marvel Future Fight having a dip and sort of having a bad time, going through a bad period, having fewer players, making less money, just not succeeding. And generally, Marvel Future Fight, and I think to a lesser extent, Marvel games have been on a downtrend since the MCU has sort of been on hiatus, right? Since Far From Home, we've gone, as of now, we've gone over a year without a single MCU title. We were supposed to get Black Widow back in April, May, obviously because of COVID, that didn't happen. So it's just understandable, right? The MCU brings so many fans, brings so much traffic to Marvel games. Every Marvel YouTuber, whether they're covering console games or mobile games, can attest to that. I can attest to that. My numbers spiked up during Infinity War, spiked up during Endgame. So it's understandable, right? But hear me out. So Q1 Marvel Future Fight accounts for only 3% of that 317 million that was grossed overseas. Now, again, I don't know if that's where that's coming from. That could be coming 2% from the US and 1% from everywhere else. It could be 2% from Latin America and 1% from everywhere else. We don't really know exactly where. It's not really important. But Marvel Future Fight grossed about 3%, and Seven Deadly Sins came in hot at 12%. So judging by those numbers, the 3% and the 12%, we can say that approximately, there's a bit of guesswork going on here. This is not absolute numbers. This is just my speculation, but I can speculate that Grand Cross made just under $40 million in 1 month, in Q1, because it was only available since March, which is insane. Actually, I don't know if they're including the Japanese version of the game. I don't know if this is the global, just Seven Deadly Sins global, or if this also includes the Japanese version. So you know what? That may be misleading then. Okay. Anywho, more importantly, January, February, March, Marvel Future Fight grossed about $9.5 million US. That's not bad. That's a little bit over $3 million US each month. Obviously, it's not nearly as good as Seven Deadly Sins Grand Cross, which grossed 4 times as much in 1/3 of the time, which is like, I don't know, 10 times more in the, if you account for, or 12 times more, whatever, if you account for the actual time that it was available for. But not bad. Okay, $10 million. Now, to remind you guys, let's go back and see now the updates that we got in January, February, and March, so you have a little bit of a better idea what's going on. Now, I'm not sure how they calculate the quarterly, like the Q1, where they cut off March, but in January, of course, we had the Warriors of the Sky update, where we got all 4 of the Warriors of the Sky added as new characters. We had the new agent training for the very first time, where new players could get a Mega Tier 2 ticket, crystals, Mega Rank Up ticket for sort of connecting their account to a veteran player, and veterans could get Tier 3 materials and crystals. It was a really cool initiative. You accessed it through this menu here, where we see Black Bolt and Medusa and stuff. We also got Tier 3 Crescent, who was probably the least exciting Tier 3 of all time, and that was the update. There wasn't a lot of game mode stuff. There was the new story mode, but that sort of flopped hard after the first playthrough with the 30.99 uniforms. And generally, although there was a lot of hype coming up for the update before it landed, once the update landed, a lot of players were disappointed, myself included, and the update just, it really fizzled out fast. It was like a balloon full of air, and we were like, yeah, dope, and then the balloon just popped, and all the air just rushed out, and we were just like, oh, so that's the update. Okay. So then February rolls around, and we get the Secret Empire update, where we get another uniform for Captain America. Everybody loses their minds. It's the most BS thing ever. But we do get a massive rework for Red Skull and Crossbones and Dr. Octopus. We get them added as awakened characters. We're a little bit more optimistic about them listening to us, because Secret Empire is not the biggest and the best moneymaker, but it's based on the comics, and it features a lot of classic Marvel characters, and it's sort of, it seems more in line with what we want, rather than just, trying to milk OC characters, trying to milk the same characters over and over again for uniforms, Captain America, Sharon Rogers, Luna Snow, this kind of stuff. So that was a little bit better. That was the February update. The February update also introduced all the original World Boss BS changes, which obviously upset the community in a major way, probably accounted for a lot of players quitting or considering a hiatus. And we had another really lame duck Tier 3. We had two back-to-back Tier 3s that were absolutely boring in Crescent and Winter Soldier, and Winter Soldier didn't even get a uniform, so their power level was just so weak in comparison to everyone else in the game. And then again, I don't know exactly how they calculate this, but March introduced the Danger Room, it didn't introduce the Danger Room. March introduced Squad Battle, I believe. It introduced Mystique, it introduced Professor X Tier 3, who was the first hype Tier 3 of 2020. Mr. Sinister, and it was a very cash grab update. There was no free character. You needed over 10,000 crystals to complete the update. It was bonkers, right? And the only game mode, the only gameplay was Squad Battle, but at the time, Squad Battle had really garbage rewards, and they also introduced Mandalay Gem Fragments. So Basically, if you want to sum up the first 3 months for Marvel Future Fight in 2020, you have really bad tier 3 options besides Professor X. You have a ton of cash grab uniforms and cash grab characters and tons of crystal wall stuff. And you have a new game mode with bad rewards and a new type of reward, which basically just split Awakening Crystals into 2, which was just obviously a blatant cash grab, and then also messed with World Boss. Not a lot of wins there. Not a lot of wins there. But Marvel Future Fight was still able to gross $9.5 million. Okay, so amid all of those screw-ups, Marvel Future Fight grossed $10 million. Okay, so now what happens quarter 2? Quarter 2, of course, being April, May, and June of this year. So let's check it out. We have some interesting things here. The overseas revenue jumps from 377 billion won to 514 billion won. That's a huge jump, massive jump. And that increases the proportion of overseas revenue by 4%. That's crazy. And the jump is so big that they actually give an extra line of text. Look at this. There's two bullet points here. They add an extra bullet point specifically about Grand Cross. I almost wanted to make this a separate Grand Cross video on my Grand Cross channel, but I didn't. But this is insane. This is how big this game is. Success of 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross led to an increase in revenue proportion of NA. So the revenue proportion in North America jumped by 3% because of this game, which leads me to believe this is only accounting for the global version of the game and Europe. But that's insane. The global version of the game was able to shift the overseas revenue as a proportion of the total revenue by 5%. When you're making, $500 million, right? When you're making $500 million in a few months, and 5% of that can be shifted across the world by one game, that's like astronomical success. That's crazy. So yeah, that game is gonna be around forever. Anyways, that's wild. So North America goes up from 33% revenue proportion to 36%, and Europe goes up from 10 to 12. Okay, so now we take a look at the game portfolio. Now 7 Deadly Sins has spiked to 21%, which is absolutely disgusting, considering that the 515 billion won translates to $431 million US. Almost $500 million, almost $500 million US in 3 months. Okay, so the total revenue from Q1 to Q2 jumps over 100 million US dollars. A lot of that is due to 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross going from 12% to 21%. But if you take a look at this, Marvel Contest of Champions went down 1%, Blade and Soul went down 2%, or Blade and Soul went down 1 or 2%. Blade and Soul went up. Lineage went down 3%. But look at this, Marvel Future Fight goes up to 5%. What did I just say? Marvel Future Fight's revenue goes up 2%. How crazy is that? So that's actually really meaningful. As much as I'm gushing over 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross, the fact that a 5-year-old game in its 6th year, by all accounts, if you ask the player base, the game's struggling. April, May, and June come, and Marvel Future Fight makes, April, May, and June come and go, and Marvel Future Fight makes 2% more. 2% more is not a small amount. So again, judging based on the amount of information I have and my own speculation and Dog Snot's math, we have an earnings for 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross of $90 million, which is insane. They averaged $30 million per month. And remember, they averaged 38 million in the first month, which means that they're going strong, which is just bonkers, which means in a year, they're going to make the game alone is going to gross close to $500 million. It's going to gross like over $300 million if it sustains. And then you factor in things like Christmas events and whatever, Black Friday, whatever. Anywho, crazy math, crazy numbers, crazy money. But Marvel Future Fight, I got to give it up for Marvel Future Fight. This is a Marvel Future Fight video, right? 21, again, according to the math, speculation, Marvel Future Fight grossed under 22 million, $21.5 million. That's more than double. For Marvel Future Fight to theoretically, speculatively, double their revenue is amazing. For a game that's 5 years old, that's just crazy. For a game that we thought was going down the dumps. So now you go ahead and look, and I know the Netmarble staff and marketing has to be looking at this, and they have to be figuring it out, right? And they already know, I'm guessing, right? They're smarter than we are. They're smarter than I am. What updates did we get in April, May, and June? So we kind of got an MCU themed update. We also got the 5-year anniversary update in April/May with Black Widow. So there was a small MCU influence, but there was no movie. There was no movie advertisements. If anything, the only advertisement was that they're delaying everything. So when you see that Black Widow is delayed, you don't rush to the App Store to play a Black Widow game. It's not really the logic of that, right? But despite the fact that that was happening, Black Widow comes out. The Black Widow update comes out. That's hailed as one of the best updates of the year, right? Changes to Legendary Battle, making it easier. Lots of new stuff coming on, going on in the game. We have the Star-Lord Guardians of the Galaxy Epic Quest. Now, the Epic Quest itself wasn't good, but the reworks to characters were good. The new characters were good. The tie-ins to the comics were good. Cosmic Ghost Rider, Beta Ray Bill, right? You have all that stuff. You have the changes to, or were the changes to the story mode in the Hulk update? I think the changes to the story mode were in the Hulk update. But anywho, then you have the Hulk update, again, based on the comics, based on a pretty recent comic run. So 2 out of 3 updates in Q2 for Marvel Future Fight were based on recent comics. You have Donny Cates' Guardians of the Galaxy, right? And then you have Immortal Hulk. Both of those updates contribute to double Marvel Future Fight's revenue. That's a really good sign. So the way that I can interpret that, not only is Marvel Future Fight on an upswing right now, and we want to ride this upswing as much as possible. For those of you that were worried about the game maybe long term, this is a good sign, right? If you're an investor and you see that a 5-year-old game going into its 6th year is able to somehow double its profits, right? And it's not doubling its profits from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. It's in the middle of the year. And there are no insane sales, right? We don't do July 4th sales in Marvel Future Fight. There's no summer sales. We had the summer uniforms, but there's no way they made that much money off of, one summer uniform. Enchantress alone did not make that much money. So it's obviously a cumulative effort of these updates that are focused on reworking bad characters, introducing actual fun content, and reworking existing content like the story mode and the story mode ultimate, and having those challenges be fun and interactive, and doing stuff that's based in the comics rather than just coming up with stuff, pulling stuff out of a hat that just doesn't have any connection to the comics, doesn't have any connection to the Marvel universe, or has a very, very loose, dry connection to the comics, which is very, very old, and it just doesn't really appeal to the audience that's currently playing the game. So I think it's a really good sign. I don't want to read too much into it. I don't want to speculate too much on it, but man, 3% to 5% is dope. And if that means what I think it means we're going to be getting, obviously, more updates. The game's not going anywhere. And 2, we're going to be getting a lot more recent comic book runs. I would love to see, and I'm probably going to make a separate video about this. Let me know what you want to see. But I would love to see an Absolute Carnage or a Venom update. They could combine those into 2. Again, tapping Donny Cates, but 2 amazing characters that have not been reworked in a long time, a la the Hulk. 2 characters that recently were featured heavily in comics will be featured later in movies. Now, I don't know how, they feel about advertising stuff that was connected to previous companies, like Fox had, Venom and stuff like that, or Sony still has Venom. But yeah, we'll have to wait. Not Fox, Sony. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But on top of that, I was going to say Donny Cates again, Thor. Again, recent comic books, reworking existing characters, and stuff that's beloved, and stuff that's a huge hit in the comics. So I would not be surprised if Q4, October, November, December, we see more of this, because it's going to take them some time, right? But they're going to look at the Q2 earnings and be like, man, we're making a lot of money doing this. Let's do more of that. So hopefully we'll see more like I said, more character reworks, more classic comic book stuff, or like not classic, but recent comic book stuff for classic characters like the Hulk, like the Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that. And more game mode reworks, because we desperately need more game mode reworks, rework to PvP, etc. But man, it gets me kind of hyped. It gets me kind of excited, and I feel a little bit more comfortable, or I guess a little bit more reassured, spending a little bit of money here and there, knowing that this ship is not sinking. If anything, it's flying into the sky. Ships can't fly, right? Anywho, let me know what you guys think of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.